Governor J.B. Pritzker late last night putting out a statement after the Biden administration sent out a notification about work permits for certain migrants that have crossed the southern U.S. border. Looking at it on Twitter, the governor says, since day one of this humanitarian crisis, this is a quote, I've heard one thing from migrant families and their advocates. They want to build better lives and work. I'm very pleased that President Biden has listened to my concerns and those of other governors and political leaders. An expanded temporary protected status to migrants from Venezuela, thousands of whom have been sent to Illinois over the past year. Despite traveling thousands of treacherous miles and then being used as political chess pieces by those who should have welcomed and helped them, they are eager to contribute to their new communities and get to work. So the governor continues on. He says reducing wait times for employment approvals and expanding protection status for those coming from Venezuela will get people working and on a path to building a better future for themselves and their families in Illinois. He says we're facing worker shortages in critical industries like hospitality, food processing, healthcare, and transportation. And the governor says these additional workers will help relieve those shortages and the burden they place on employers. The governor goes on to say that his administration will continue to work with the Biden administration and the Department of Homeland Security to address the ongoing influx of asylum seekers with care, compassion, and practicality as this crisis evolves. What's fascinating here is, he seems to just kind of gloss over the fact that the Biden administration's policies on the border have been lax, allowing for millions of people to come across. And just some of the video that I'm seeing online is just staggering to see the scores of people crossing the border and bringing families. And a lot of them, though, look to be of, men of military age, for instance. So clearly there are some concerns that, people characterizing it as an invasion of sorts. So how do you balance all of this out with those concerns? And also, when we heard about this earlier, when was this? Last month. It was late last month when Governor Pritzker and Senator Durbin and even members of various business associations like the Manufacturers Association, they talked about the migrant situation and how they need more workers. So they should push for this type of operation to allow for more worker permits. But you've got those pushing back against the idea, including downstate state representative Charlie Meyer. He said late last month that there's no way to police who's actually going to be working in these types of conditions for farmers, and that's a problem.
There's nothing set up for this to work, where the programs that we have that we use, they're vetted, we know who's coming. You've got some background on them.
And he says that while they could use the help, they do use the help from those who have been vetted, those undocumented who have been vetted.
A lot of farms use, and we need that work, we need workers. But it seems like you should come legally in this country to do that. That's my opinion on that.
And then you have U.S. Representative Darren LaHood also raising concerns about the idea of workers not properly being vetted in these types of situations.
When you allow in 4 million people under the Biden administration that have come across the border illegally, that not complying with the rule of law, then that's problematic.
And don't forget, the border's wide open. And that needs to be addressed along with immigration reform.
There's multiple issues that need to be addressed. First of all, they're violating the law. We have laws in place in this country that need to be abided by.
So the debate continues on migration reform, but the president is moving forward with allowing for work permits for those from Venezuela and to have temporary status. And you've got the reaction now. I'm sure business community is going to see what some are characterizing here on YouTube, commenting saying they need, quote, cheap labor. That's a commenter on YouTube this morning. But you can sound off as well at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. So Governor J.B. Pritzker again celebrating that President Joe Biden has and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security expanding temporary protections, including work permits for thousands of recent asylum seekers in Illinois and across the country. But while we've got the border seeming to be just wide open, you've got the debate continuing even in Congress, where the questions of what kind of reforms are there going to be have still kind of eluded the Congress in particular. You've got members of the U.S. Senate debating this just recently. If you recall, you had a hearing that was set for talking about book bans, but instead they delved into the issue of immigration reform. And here you've got in the Senate Judiciary Committee earlier this month, Senator Lindsey Graham raising significant issues with how many migrants have come across.
We've had 146 people on the terrorist watch list. In FY22, which is about 2.4 million came across. Since President Biden's been president, 5.5 million people have come across illegally. That's bigger than the state of South Carolina. And
U.S. Senator Dick Durbin saying, hey, they worked on it before.
Gang of 8, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, wrote a comprehensive immigration reform bill, which I still think in the whole can be used today as a template for where we need to go.
He said that that did have some protections for DACA recipients, those in the country, brought in the country by their parents when they were young.
The bill was that those who were undocumented, currently living in the United States, would report themselves to the government and pay their taxes and their Social Security. They would not qualify for citizenship, at least in the outset. And the idea was to get everybody on the books once and for all.
So they're going to advance anything like that in the U.S. Senate or even in the U.S. House? They're going to come to terms with all of the opposition there is and the questions of safety? And what do you do with that federal judge who recently just determined that DACA was illegal, that the deferred action for new arrivals was illegal? So this is going to be an ongoing situation, but the bottom line is, as U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham said, there's been several million people come across the border in just the span of a few years, and that was not the case under the former administration, but it seems to have been the case now. Let's take a quick call here before the bottom of the hour news at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, morning, Greg. How's it going?
Good. Yourself?
Oh, not bad. You know, I only got a couple issues with the temporary work permits and such. When they start piling on migrants into jobs and other places, the only thing it really does, and just like they said on YouTube, they're looking for cheap labor. And what you do is all the Democrats and everybody that's sitting there preaching about a living wage and higher wages, when they do things like this, they drive down the value of legitimate American workers, because when you can man those jobs for cheaper, the wages that they're wanting the American people to get, they're not going to get. And then on top of that, a better way to fill the employment gap that we're having nowadays, why don't we start lessening the incentive for people to sit at home and do nothing as opposed to bringing in cheaper labor? I mean, the government has so many incentives to where if I decided I didn't want to work tomorrow and I wanted to sit at home, I could go do a couple of things for cash, tax-free, put my family on welfare. I mean, there's multiple things I could do to survive, and I would be more well off than I am right now trying to do it right.
Well, there's definitely incentives on both sides of this equation, if you really think about it, right? I mean, the incentive you're highlighting, you're indicating that is making people who are residents of this country want to just stay home and not actually work because they can find subsidies or some kind of government benefits to kind of fill the void. But you've also got incentives of Sanctuary city policies, taxpayer-funded health care for those over the age of 65 in this country as non-citizens in Illinois. Now work permits for those from Venezuela. Can somebody from Peru say, hey, I identify as from Venezuela recently. Can I go ahead and get this work permit? So the incentives are across the board when you look at this and how they actually get control of it, especially with those business interests who have been pushing for these work permits. How do you get the U.S. Congress to actually reverse this? And I'll let you answer that here in a moment. But you also got to consider, while you're raising the issues about the work and the economy, those economic issues absolutely are important. But other people will raise concerns about what the trajectory is for the makeup of this country, especially when it comes to the electorate. And could there be a push to say, all right, these people are here now, let's just give amnesty, and then all of a sudden they can have access to the ballot box? So you've got that concern in play as well.
And I fully agree. That is the end game plan for this, because the more of the actual American public that they're losing in the polling, they have to fill that gap somewhere.
What times we live in. It's pretty incredible. Appreciate the call.
Nope, have a good day.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, and we'll have a lot more to say about this in the future, no question.